Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Crowe. Arundel. D'Angelo.
Here.
Di Maria.
Here.
Kennan. Matheson.
Here.
O'Malley.
Here.
Seega.
Here.
Spatafora. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are sitting in different seats. At least I'm sitting in a different seat this evening. The council president is not feeling well this evening. A couple of other councilors haven't arrived, so we'll shift things around a bit, and as a senior councilor, we'll call the first order of business. Applicant will be confirmed to the Board of Appeals. Next order of business.
Paper number 209, tabled until this meeting. Order that the treasurer be authorized to borrow $6,780,000 under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 6, for resurfacing of roads.
On Councilor Matheson's motion that we take that from the table, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That paper is taken from the table. Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, I don't know if procedurally we need to take it from the table. We actually tabled for 1 week, so it was scheduled to come back up this week. I know it appeared under tabled papers, which is why I made the motion. Being a financial paper, it will need 2/3 of the full council, and seeing as we have 8 members here this evening out of our 11, I don't believe that we're in a position to vote on this financial paper for $6.7 million. So I'm asking to lay it back on the table for procedural reasons.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Councilor O'Malley?
So I just wanted to kind of speak with the council, with the audience, with the public. We're kind of at a crossroads here. I think this is, we have a lot of road work to do. We're up on the construction season right now. And I think we do have to fund some type of road work tonight, whether it's not with this bond or whether it is with the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund to get started. Some type of funding has to happen tonight. I think that is crucial to really getting this project moving forward before the summer season and the busy seasons of construction. So I would support tabling this particular order. And I do look forward to discussing further the $2 million in the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, which is free cash. So I do support tabling this at the moment, but I would like to have further discussion regarding the $2 million in the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, free cash. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor, for yielding here, because I think it is wise that we wait, because we don't have the President, the Chair of Finance, and another councilor here. So, to me, I like the proposal. I like the proposal. I think this is going in the right direction. We had a good, healthy debate last week, so I think we're making progress here. Believe me, I don't want to wait longer than we have to either. I don't. But it's not like we have one councilor away. I mean, we got 3 away. This is a significant piece of spending, so I'd be in favor of tabling it for just 1 week. I don't want to put it off indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did get word from Councilor Spatafora that he should be here within 5 minutes. Just a point of information. Not sure what you want to do with that. If there's something we could do. Would Councilor Matheson consider the vote? Should Councilor Spatafora come this evening, or is it definitely?
So you are suggesting that we not table it, Councilor?
I am, because I do believe another councilor is going to be attending shortly.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Crowe.
If Councilor Spatafora or the 8 of us, I understand that we have 3 councilors not here. We have been talking about this, and our residents, our constituents need this to happen. We need to come to a decision, and we need to move forward. So if it takes that we're going to have 9 councilors instead of 8 to make a decision, then I think we take a recess for 10, 15 minutes until Council Spatafora can be here. And I totally understand that other councils are not here, but we've been talking about this for not weeks, but months. There's been plans coming up and down, and I think we really just need to choose a plan. I think Councilor O'Malley's plan, it's take incremental steps. I think if we cannot get behind that, we gotta, right, what can we get behind? So we need to choose a plan and move forward with it. And I agree, maybe waiting for 1 week is the answer. But we've been waiting for 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, and again, we've lost construction season after construction season, and we do not lose it again. So if Council Spatafora, and someone can text him now, see if he's in there, or we can make a decision and move forward. But we need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. We got into this game a little late, Councilor O'Malley, from what I informed myself. However, I think it's very, very important, all right, that our target should be to be able to get those 16 streets done by the end of the year, by the second construction season, which is the fall. It's very difficult for me to sit here knowing, all right, that we have 7 streets out for bid for full depth reconstruction when no more than 2 or 3 of them should be full depth reconstruction. We could save over $500,000 by redesigning those streets. And I understand it sets you back, but we can still complete all 16 streets by the end of the year. If you redesign the streets the way they should have went out to begin with, and I'm saying, okay, that at least 4 of those streets should be mill and overlay, and I'm saying that we can save over $500,000 by we can save in excess of $1 million by putting those 16 streets together, redesigning them, and sending them out as a package, and they can be awarded probably by August and completed by November. And if they go out the way they should, we should be able to save in excess of $1 million. And I don't know, we have the financial team here, and if any of them would like to come up and speak, I'd be more than happy to listen to them. And if you dispute what I'm saying, I'd like to hear it. But I think it's very, very important, and I understand fully, and I feel bad for the councils that have been waiting, but it's still hard for me to sit here knowing that we're overpaying on those 7 streets in excess of $500,000. And we're going to be overpaying on the 9 streets, probably in excess of probably $700,000 or $800,000 if they go out full depth reconstruction. You're tearing up, removing all the asphalt. You're going to be doing sidewalks that are in perfectly good condition. I'm sorry to have to bring this up, and I'm sure everybody's entitled to take a shot at me, but that's just the way I feel. I feel lousy about not being able to save in excess of $1 million just to wait and complete it by the fall. I have no problem voting for the money, but voting for the money doesn't mean we have to jump right into the bid. I just want you to understand that. I want you to understand where I'm coming from, and I fully understand where you people are coming from. But I think we need to take a step back. You're going to have bigger companies bid on those 16 streets. I worry about, you had 2 companies bid on the 7 streets. That's because it was such a small construction job. if you put the 16 streets together, you're gonna get the larger companies to bid, probably get a better price, and still hopefully be able to complete this by the end of the year. I would be very interested to hear from any of the 4 people out there in your thoughts. You may totally disagree with me. I'd like to hear and I'd like to know why. So that's where I am.
Thank you. Before we ask any of those to come forward, anyone who has not spoken, anyone in objection to having Mr. Knox approach the podium? So we have a motion to refer to table this. I would ask for those who have made that motion, if you would consider holding the motion until we allow some of our subject matter experts to speak. Does anyone have any opposition? No. Councilor Matthew? Okay, Mr. Knox, would you please come forward? So the question is, last week, I made the statement that we really needed to move forward with this, and I was hoping that we could coalesce around a particular set of agreements on these streets. Some of us went out and did a ride through with you and Mr. Russell, Councilor DiMaria, Councilor O'Malley, and myself. We looked at some of these streets, and it's been our understanding that we needed to move these first 7 streets out, or we were likely to be losing this construction season. So I guess for me, that's the first question. If we were to do as Councilor Condon's suggestion, are we in jeopardy of losing this construction season?
Well, as you said, Councilor, we did a ride around yesterday, I believe it was, looked at a bunch of streets that are on this first 7 package that's already been bid, and the next 9 streets that I should get the bid documents soon for the design on that, as well as other streets in the remaining 50 that need to be done. So we did a couple hours of riding around, which sparked my conversation this morning with CDM Smith, because the question was, where can we go from here? And after talking to CDM Smith this morning, I said, if we, as Councilor Condon just mentioned, if we repackaged and redesigned those 16 streets into a package, what are we looking for a time frame? And will we miss out on the construction season? So the answer that I got from Mr. Button was it's going to take 8 to 10 weeks to redesign the 16 streets. We'd probably get the bids back, bid and back at the beginning of August, and we could start the 16 streets somewhere between August and September. Would we get all 16 streets done? It all is going to be weather driven, and where the contractors that win or awarded the jobs are, if they're working in Melrose or Everett, what their availability is. But it's a possibility to get some streets done. I don't know if all 16 will get complete, but you're looking at August or September where they can start those 16 streets.
Councilor, state your point of information.
Yeah. 8 to 10 weeks from now is not the end of August, it's in July.
That would get 8 to 10 weeks before he can get them redesigned and back on the street. He's saying we would get the bids back after putting them out, for 2 weeks, whatever. We would get them back by August 1st. Between August and September, they can start the project. It would take them 8 to 10 weeks to design the 16 streets with modifications to how they are now.
Yeah. So Mr. Knox, you're saying that going through this process, we should be able to start construction in sometime around September?
Yeah, that's what...
August or September.
That's what we were told. So
which would mean that we probably wouldn't be able to do all 16 streets. Is that what your best guess would be?
I would say that's a fair assessment, that you wouldn't get all 16 done. Again, it's depending on weather and availability on where the contractor that wins the bid is at that time, if they're working in another city and what their availability would be. So you could get the project started. I don't know that you get 16 streets complete by the winter.
Okay, my board is lit up here like a Christmas tree. Let me go in the order that I see these things. So let me start with my far left, Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Council President. So I know that during our
Did you say
ride,
Madam President?
I said, Council. Oh, curtsy. I know during our ride in various times, we've talked about how we only got 2 bidders to bid for this work. I know that we have decided there are certain contractors that we do not want to do business with because of the quality of the work that they're doing. And there are certain contractors that don't want to do business with us because we sometimes take a little bit of effort getting this work out, and it's a little bit difficult customer. Do you think that it could be a challenge getting bids back, and could that jeopardize whether or not we receive any bids?
I think you definitely would get bidders. You would get the same 2 that bid on this package. But because it's such a larger package, you probably would get interest from some different companies as well. Again, it's just an opinion on my end, but you would definitely get those 2 that bid, and probably more because of the size of the package.
Understood. And then if we were to rebid this, I mean, I've always been in support of reducing scope where possible. I know that during our ride, we had saw a lot of sidewalks that were asphalt. Would leaving asphalt sidewalks be part of the revised scope?
Well, again, that's something we're gonna have to discuss on moving forward, what the plan is, because a lot of those streets do have asphalt sidewalks. And it is a subject question on where do you draw the line on spending this money. I think if we had a number to work with, so we're saying that the package for the 16 right now is about $4.6 million. And if we're looking to reduce that by 25%, we have to take a good hard look on what exactly would have to be cut on each street to get to that number. So it could be a combination of sidewalks or reducing the scope of the work from a full depth street to a mill overlay street to get to that number.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Crowe.
Well, not too many questions for you at the moment, but hang on. But I am in agreement with Councilor Condon that we do want to scale back, and I do think that we need to come up with a plan, and working with you, and you're on the streets every day with your team. Know the potholes, see the C-clip fixes, really understand everything that's going on, and I think we really don't need to rely on your expertise on some of the things that we know really may need full depth reconstruction and can do a mill and overlay. I think Main Street in front of 480 is a perfect example. That is a very, very heavily traveled street. It was in very poor condition, got a lot of complaints about that. They did a mill and overlay, looks great. And I understand, but I think for my constituents, 5 streets that are gonna last 30 years, or 15 streets are gonna last 10, or 15, or 20, is gonna, we need to do as many streets as we can. Not doing them, pardon my language, half-assed, but doing them that we are moving along. So I'm in agreement that we figure out where we can cut back and keep to our budget, but move forward. And so far, we have not moved forward, and that's my concern. We need to move forward. Even if it's choosing a number and then deciding what streets can be cut back, or we just need to move forward. We're not moving forward right now. So I think we need to decide a number that we can agree on and where the funding comes from, and with the caveat of we're going to relook at those streets, do we package them out? And if we do package them out, Director Knox, what is that procedure? Again, so we will be missing, so we do that now. If we decide on a number, how long does that take? And are we pushing it back further and further the long?
Yeah, if we, like I said, if we redesign this and these 16 streets and put them out as a package, it's gonna take CDM Smith 8 to 10 weeks to design that package. So technically, we're looking at, as I said, probably around between August and September before you actually start with the contractor in place on the ground doing the work.
So meaning if we did it today, if we table it for another week, but how far out do we need to make sure we need to hit this deadline to be able to give them the weeks needed, to be able to put the RFP out, get the bids back, and then still make that construction?
Well, every week that we don't have a decision either way is gonna push it back. So if this goes another week, instead of looking at August 1st, we're now looking at the second week of August. So until we have a direction to move forward, and it's gonna push the project back. If we were to go today to redesign the project, we're looking at 8 to 10 weeks from the approval of redesign.
And do we know the cost of redesigning the project?
I asked that same question, and it can vary on you know, how far we're cutting it back, but you're looking at probably a guesstimate, $75,000 to $100,000 to redesign the package up with the 16 streets.
And if we, as to Councilor Condon's point, if we redesign the package, are we saving, what might be the cost of savings, or will we?
You can modify the contract to reduce scope of work and saves money. To put an exact number for me standing in front of you, what that number is going to be is pretty tough. But you, after driving all the streets, and I'm around the streets every single day, there are streets out there that I'm sure that we could mill and overlay instead of do a full depth. The thing that I think people maybe, and I explained this the other day when we drove around, most people don't probably understand the difference of mill and overlay and full depth, and I'm not trying to educate everybody here, but at the end of the day,
I think everyone needs an education in the.
at the end of the day, you hear the terms full depth and mill and overlay, and as you said, like, we'll use 480 Main Street as an example. Whether that was full depth or it was mill and overlay, the end result, the top layer is going to look the same to you. The only difference is what's under the substructure and how it's going to wear. So to the eye, that section of Main Street, using it as an example, we all know it was in deplorable condition. But underneath the top layer, the base was good, so they could mill that. We'll get a good lifespan out of that. If there's nothing to mill to, if the top layer after that is under is dirt, gravel, there's nothing to mill to, you can't mill the 1.5 or 2 inches off, now that's a candidate for a full depth reclamation, because you have to redesign the road. But at the end of the day, the final product, it's all going to look the same. It's going to be a black street curb to curb. It's just how you get there is what costs the money.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Crowe. We've got 3 lights, and then we're going to call the question. And they are, as I'm trying to take an order, Councilor D'Angelo, Councilor Matheson, and Councilor DiMaria. Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to everybody who just made some good points here. I agree with Councilor Condon with his packaging that he wants to do. He wants to get an economy of scale there. I agree with much of what Councilor Crowe says. But just a couple of things for the audience here and at home. To me, it's important to have context, and let's recognize the good work that this council and councils previously to us have done. I mean, we've been catching up here, right? For previous years, and I know the city engineers here, he's testified to us before, and our DPW director, you know, we've got 100-something miles of roadway in the city of Malden, and we were only doing a mile a year or a little bit over a mile a year, and as a result, we were falling behind. Well, now, recently, we did 6 miles one year, I think we did 7 miles another year, we did another 6 miles, so we've been catching, and then we were in the span of doing this other 6 or 7 miles, and then we realized, hold the phone, the prices have gone up, and, you know, streets changed from having to just resurface them to now they need full reconstruction and everything. So let's just make sure that people at home know that we've gone down this road. We've already bitten off a good amount. We've already done a lot of work. So let's just make sure everybody knows that we've gotten a good amount of what we paid for here. The other thing is that, to me, the devil is in the details. And I look at the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services accounts all the time. And I look at what other cities are doing, and particularly our competitor cities. The Medfords, the Everetts, the Reveres, Melroses of the world, and even the other ones that we've outlined, the Woburns and Taunton, and the other ones that we've said that are similar comparable cities to Malden. Malden has the highest debt among all those communities, by far. Matter of fact, some of the communities around us, we have more debt than like all of them put together. So I think we should wrap up what we started, absolutely. But a lot of these proposals that we're looking at here have bonding associated with them. And then we still have other projects that we're going to need to take care of. We had a ballot question that called for paying $5 million for Malden Hospital. We've got other projects in the works. We just bought a building downtown to relocate City Hall. So we've got other things we're going to be bonding for. So to me, we've got to be careful. And I just want to be very cognizant of bonding out. Now I understand part of these proposals are for water sewer account, but even still, that's going to impact the water sewer ratepayers. So I just want to be cognizant of that going forward. To me, another reason to hold it until we have all 11. And then finally, the other point I would make is, and I'm glad Director Knox is still up here. So I'm curious though, we've just thrown quite a bit of business at CDM Smith over these past couple of years. They've done very well by the city of Malden. So I'm not sure why we need to wait to Councilor Condon's point so long to redesign all these streets if they've already done that. Okay, granted, they got to go back, but even still, it's not like they're starting from complete scratch. I'm not sure why we have to wait as long for those. And then some of them, why do we even have to redesign at all? Like, not all of them we have to. I don't understand that. Maybe you can answer that. And then the other thing to me is, if there is going to be another motion here to just do the 2 million, just to be clear to my colleagues, I'd be in favor of that. We wouldn't have to wait for another colleague. I think we could get the 8 votes. But that's just to be clear. That's just the 2 million. That's not the full amount that we're going for here. So with that, I'll end my comments and questions. And please, Director Knox, if you could enlighten us on that, please. Thank you.
So what it's going to take to redesign these 16 streets technically is going to be myself and Jack Russell driving around each street again with CDM Smith and saying, yes, we can get away with a full, a mill here or a full depth here, and where can we reduce the scope? So we're going to have to take time to drive all these streets again and make some tough decisions. Because in a perfect world with an endless pot of money, we'd tell you to pave every street, do every sidewalk, and plant every tree. We don't have that luxury, so we're going to have to make some tough decisions where some streets in the past got all those things, but with the situation that we're in now, the work that needs to be done, we're going to have to redrive every street and make some decisions that what is the best way to get to that number to reduce the scope of the work. So it's going to take time for us to drive them, then for CDM to go back, do all the paperwork, the figuring, and put the package up. I'm using their number of, say, 8 to 10 streets. Could it be shorter? That's the number that he gave me this morning, was 8 to 10 streets. But it will take a combination of both city employees as well as CDM Smith visiting and discussing these streets again. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to point out that because I yielded on my table motion, I think that you've gotten your recess, and Councilor Spatafora hopefully does arrive to engage in the conversation. If he doesn't, I'm not in the business of supposing what his vote might be or delaying these proceedings, but hopefully he does arrive. Back to the point at issue. I do believe that there are colleagues of ours that would like to weigh in before we appropriate $6.7 million, which may have some impact to the ratepayers. I understand that there is deputy and retired, but I'm sure that our chairman of finance and our council president would like to be present for that conversation, and they should be. Particularly where a 1-week delay is not that prejudicial to the residents of Malden. Secondly, well, let me just put out there, the next paper which I think is far less controversial. I think it has wide support among us councilors. I was not intending on tabling that one, but this one, which actually should be tabled, and I won't vote for it. I am anxious to get to the $2 million appropriation, and I'll tell you why. The streets that have already been surveyed, designed, and bid by this council at the end of last year and over the course of the winter are ready to go. We don't have to wait till September to do them. We could do them right now. We've already done the work. If we repackage them for the purpose of rebidding them, resurveying, and redesigning them, that comes at a cost of wasted money. Not millions, but tens of thousands of dollars that already went into getting these streets ready to go. And on behalf of my residents, who I'm elected to represent, I'm speaking for them, they've been waiting patiently and they deserve to get their road work done. Now, I've got a couple questions because I keep looking back and my head is spinning. Bob, it's not your fault, right? Maybe it's the mayor's fault, maybe it's CDM, I don't know, and I really don't care. But I've got all these different shots, right? This iteration comes from May 19th, 2015, Madam Clerk likes when I do this. I've got another one from April 28th, 2015. I mean, they're all over the place. But this is the thing that kind of bothers me. Right, so the councils that are saying, let's bond all this $6.7 million right now, let's repackage the streets. I've got 2 streets in my ward ready to go, and I'm hearing from some of them that, well, you know what, maybe we could just do a mill and overlay to them now. They're at 20-something on this PCI index, and I know we spent money putting this stuff together. We don't talk about it anymore, but when it was served someone's purposes, we were talking about it. So I'm going to talk about it again. I've got another list that I got, may I say that, Madam Clerk? Of the roads that are supposedly complete to this point. And I don't think the complete roads list is complete. And this is for my own edification, and maybe the Ward 1 councilor can help me, was Green Street done?
A portion of Green Street.
Portion of Green Street was done.
Short section.
Comes in at the 50s and 60s on the PCI index. It's a full-depth reconstruction. Now I look at Bauer Street, Pine Street, and Desmond Street in the 10 and 12 range, and they're on for minor road improvement? How on earth does that make sense? And are we even looking at this PCI index, or are we playing politics on whose roads get fixed and how much they get fixed?
Well, I don't think that's what we don't want to play politics at all. We want to look at the road condition, and we want to take the politics out of it and address the situation. And I can agree with you, Councilor, after looking at...
But then we go by the PCI.
Well, I speaking on the specific streets that you just mentioned, Bauer Street, Pine Street, I would agree with you. Those are definite full-depth streets.
Then why are they minor road improvement?
Every street now in the packages are all full-depth. Moving forward, every street is a full-depth is what the plan they have moving forward.
You know,
What we're saying is, there are streets that can be modified that are, CDM came in here and said, everything's full depth, all new sidewalks, all new handicap ramps, and everything. We're saying, yes, we gotta make them handicap accessible, we have to put the ramps in, but we're saying there might be some streets out there, we know there are some streets out there, if you look at the condition of the street, some of them, the patch is better than the condition of the street. Some of them have 3 homes on a dead end that might get 5 cars a day on it. So if we look specifically street by street, that's what we have to do to repackage these 16. And again, there'll be some that have to be full depth. There is no other option because they're in that bad a condition.
So, I mean, one of the things that bothers me is all the hocus pocus with Green Street is not on the complete street list, and other streets have, kind of disappeared. Then I have to go back over this list to see the PCI. Last year we had a list that told you the PCI. And now I'm hearing from my colleagues, well, you know what, Kernwood doesn't really need a full depth. That one's coming in at 28. We've already repaved Green Street at 56. What kind of representative would I be if I said, sure, all right, cut back on my constituent streets? You're going to have another turn to talk. But just to finish my point, there is no way that I'm going to vote to rebundle all these streets, redesign them, resurvey them, rebid them with a whole host of other streets, scale back on the way what 3 streets appear that have already been designed, surveyed, and bid out. We have streets ready to go. All that's missing is a shovel in the ground. We also have money to pay for it. All that's missing is our vote, and it doesn't require the 6.7 tonight. it requires us to take action on the next item that's coming up on the docket. So when debate is concluded, I would like to revisit my tabling motion, which I do believe is in order, but for now, I've said what I had to say. Bob, no disrespect to you at all. I think you're one of the best public servants in the city, and I appreciate everything you do.
No, I appreciate it, thank you. And again, Counselor, if the vote was to pass those 7 streets as they are now, we can start the work. We just gotta move in a direction. Whichever the direction is, if it's those 7 as they are, or it's rebundled in the 16, the question was asked to be, can we modify things? And the potential is there. And some of them you can't. The water ones that you mentioned, you know.
And frankly, if certain councilors, want to go through their board and say, look, I can take back 25% of the funding on these, I mean, I understand, I've heard that from some, I fully appreciate that. And we can do that on some of the future roads that are coming, just not the ones that are survey designed, bid, and ready to go. Those have just got to go. That's how I feel. I'm tired of wasting time and repeating work that's already been done. I guess that concludes my statement. I've talked enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor DeMaria.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson, Council President, this evening. I did have the pleasure of going around yesterday with Director Knox and City Engineer Jack Russell. It was an amazing 2.5 to 3 hours. This project, just to bring everybody back to where it began in 2011, and there are 3 main objectives for this project where we're agonizing over now. The mission was to replace the old pipes that were over 100 years old. And this project was citywide. It was not ward distinction. To replace the lead pipes and to repair the hydrants. That's where this project began. And as anyone and every one of you know, when you start a project in your home, one thing goes into another, goes into another. The funding was not there to do full depth reconstruction on these roads. This city began in 1640. We're not high-tech city. We're, desperately trying to take care of what we have. We have replaced over 20 miles of lead pipe. Our hydrants, our 150 hydrants are usable and workable. We have replaced 2,500 of our water service pipes. So I don't think there's any blame here from any past council, any council sitting here, the mayor, or our officials. I think that it's a project, and to me, by driving around yesterday with my 2 fellow colleagues and these gentlemen, it's a hard decision for you people to make. I mean, it can go either way. You can look at it and say, let's do full depth and spend the money that we don't have, or let's try to be fiscally conservative, and the end result, again, is the end result. I think one thing that really concerns me is when we do full depth, based on the requirements, a lot of our trees are going to be cut. I'm just really not happy with that. But I think I ask and urge the council right here to consider this as we move forward as not a ward-based project, it's a city-wide project. I know all ward councilors are very territorial with their ward, but this is a city-wide project, and until we actually collaborate and are cooperative, we're never going to get anything done. So that's my soapbox, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. As the acting council president, I have to wait until everyone else has a chance to speak before I'm able to. I think you've all had a chance to speak at least a couple of times, so let me throw in my few cents again. I believe, ma'am? You may, after I have had a chance to make my comments. Because you've already had a chance to speak. You've all had a chance to speak at least once or twice. And so my comments are these. I think we ought to table this. And I believe that Council Matheson, who had made the tabling motion, was willing to allow the discussion to take place so that we could get some of this information out on the floor. And I believe it's been helpful. I also want to comment that when we went around yesterday, as Councilor Di Maria and Councilor O'Malley, myself along with Mr. Knox, Mr. Russell, we saw a lot of streets that we were kind of scratching our head with about. You know, wow, this street here is due for full depth reclamation. Surely doesn't seem like it needs to be that. And here's a street here that is scheduled for full depth reconstruction. And the street is so narrow that if you put in sidewalks, there wouldn't be an opportunity to drive a car down the street. So there certainly are streets that some subject matter expert has designed, but didn't seem to make total sense to all of us that were driving around. Now, when we broke up our meeting yesterday, we kind of had a consensus that, you know, we were so far down the road with these first 7 streets that unless we moved on that, we were going to lose the whole season. That's what our understanding, or at least our feeling was. But I'm hearing Mr. Knox say that that's not necessarily the case. That if we are to hold off and repackage, we've got a chance to do a lot of the streets. You know, those 7 streets that have already been packaged, they're in place. It's not going to take an awful lot to redo and modify what has been written up. Because I'm not convinced. I don't think those of you other councils that went out with me yesterday felt that what CDM had proposed to us, you know, and we're laymen, but what CDM had proposed to us didn't seem to make sense. My last comment is that because we have all talked about the need to scale back this overall project, that we need to all be willing, all of this council, all need to be willing to cut back on what's going to take place in our ward. I mean, there are some streets in my ward that are due the next go around at 9, and there are some things that if I needed to give up something, I could see where I could give up some parts of that job. And I would think that the only way we're going to be able to go forward in this is if everyone has that willingness, each of the councils have that willingness to be able to tighten our belt and be willing to cut back a little bit so that we can make this budget work for these streets. So with that, I will allow Councilor Crowe, if you'd like to respond to what was said. And then if you don't mind, councilors, unless there's some objection. Okay. Councilor Crowe. So that's my comment. My comment is I think we have, if it sounds like, you know, we're not going to lose this construction season, we can get that going and others. I don't think we have to rush into this. So Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm in full agreement that we do want to scale back where we can and to get as many streets as we can get done to a good position. And the only reason I wanted to say something about Green Street is, and I understand that, you know, might be have the 52. Green Street goes from Everett all the way down past Bow. There is a trucking company on the Everett side. So some of it might be different. It crosses over Medford Street. It's a larger kind of scale. But some of the things I think that when we just look at
Councilor Crowe, are you responding to something that Councilor Matheson?
Yeah,
that's the reason that you were
we
giving.
should not be like picking on the street and saying like, why is this one and not that one? That's where we're getting ourselves in trouble. I think we need to look at everything and scale back on some of our things. I'm happy to do so in my ward to get more streets done and to move everything forward. But absolutely.
Is there any objection to Councilor Condon having,
Just one more time.
is,
As short as possible.
is there any objection to that? Councilor Condon?
First of all, I would really like to thank the council for just allowing me to speak one last time. But I have to take issue with a couple things, Bob, that CDM. If we mill and overlay, say 5 or 4 out of the 7 streets, they don't have to even redesign 2 or 3 of them. And they're the worst. They're the worst of the worst. All right? Now, you got 9 more streets. If we only do full depth reconstruction on 2 out of the 9 or 3 on the 9 that really need it, all right, there's 2 or 3 more streets they don't have to design. So CDM is full of it. I do not believe that it would take 8 to 10 weeks to redesign that many streets. And the streets that we wouldn't mill and overlay, some of them are very small streets. Very small streets that an engineer, I'm sorry, if you couldn't redesign that street in 2 days, you don't belong in the business. So what I'm saying is, we have, as a council, have to decide, what's the obligation here? I'm saying 16 streets, if you mill and overlay 12 of them, or even 13 of them, we'll save in excess of $1 million. And I don't think anybody on the financial team will argue that. I think it's safe to say any street you mill and overlay is going to be approximately, maybe a little more than 50% of the cost. The design work, you're saving on the design work because you're not designing a couple of the streets that are going to be full depth. So you're only talking about 4 or 5 streets in that first batch. And if we can save in excess of $1 million, honestly, that's an obligation that we have to set the ball rolling on the way we want it done. Now, will we save in excess of $1 million? That's what I'd like to know.
And that, there's definitely savings. What the number will be, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But I can tell you this, though, Councilor. I hear what you're saying, and the reason after our drive yesterday, what sparked me to make the phone call this morning is because the same question that I knew that you would ask tonight, we all want to know, are we going to lose the construction season? And the answer was no. You know, he told me 8 to 10 weeks, maybe it will be less, but I can definitely see your point where some of them wouldn't need to be redesigned because we're already conceding the fact that these ones have to be full depth. But I'm just relaying the message that was given to me this morning, whether I agree with it or not, you know, maybe we'll let it be less. He told me 8 to 10 weeks to design it.
Well, that's the reason why we're going to lose the construction season, because they're saying it's 8 to 10 weeks, when that's ridiculous. Because they don't have to redesign every single street. And we can save in excess of $1 million, that's what we should be doing. I'm done. I apologize to council, and thank you, Council Matheson, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Council Matheson has a tabling motion. And all those in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. That paper will be tabled. Next order of business. Council Matheson, thank you for your patience with that.
Order that $2 million of available water sewer enterprise fund free cash is appropriated for the purpose of reconstructing streets involved in the water main replacement program, tabled until this meeting.
That's Councilor Matheson.
Thank you very much. So this is funding from another source. This is from the excess cash reserves from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. We presently hold about 3.5 million, if I'm wrong. Okay, I'm getting confirmation from our city controller, 3.5 million in that fund. We have a policy that we keep 5% of reserves as a safety measure. So there are approximately $2 million of excess reserves, if I'm stating the facts correctly, and if I'm not, I'm sure someone will correct on this. So this is another funding source with which we can do some streets. Now, I previously mentioned, and frankly, you know, I'd be in favor of using more than the $2 million, to be honest with you. And I'm not necessarily opposed to the other funding source, which is a bond, it's a borrowing, because as debt comes off the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, we can replace that debt without upward pressure on water and sewer tax rates. But with respect to this $2 million, it's there. It's ready to be used. We have streets that have been surveyed, designed, and bid, and I'm willing to support applying those funds. I think the only question we might have is whether or not we want to let all 11 councilors weigh in on it, or if we want to do that here tonight. As I stated previously, we would need unanimity in order to pass this, but I do think that this funding source has a lot of wide support. So there it is. Thank you.
Well, the paper hasn't been taken off the table yet.
I'm not so sure procedurally that we need to do that if we tabled for 1 week, but it didn't appear in the agenda. I mean, I'm fine.
So I guess I have the question to the rest of my colleagues. That firstly, we had a vote as to whether...
I'll make a motion to take it off the table.
Take it off the table. Councilor D'Angelo, state your point of order.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the clerk on the rule here. So we have a
I
policy.
mean, a point of inquiry.
Well, point of inquiry, point of parliamentary. So we have a policy in place regarding the amount of reserve that we need. So I guess I would ask our financial team out there, is this going to impact that? And if it does, what do? Do we have to suspend the rules to go away from that policy?
Well, before we do that, we first have to decide whether or not we want to take this off the table. We just had a long discussion on the other piece of it. That's going to be held over for a week. So the question would be, the motion is to take this paper from the table. Can I get a roll call on whether we want to take this from the table?
Councilor Anderson. Councilor Crowe.
Yes.
Condon. Yes. D'Angelo.
Not until I have an answer on that.
So that's a no.
Di Maria.
Yes.
Matheson.
Yes.
O'Malley.
Yes.
Seeger.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay, so the paper is now off the table. And now Councilor D'Angelo has a question. Let's restate your question there, Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So my question to either our controller or our financial planner, Mr. Hogan, is, or even the clerk for that matter, if there's somebody from the solicitor's office here. So we have a reserve policy. What's that number that needs to be left in that account, and how will this $2 million impact that? Does that bring us close to it? Does that violate it?
Mr. Hogan, thank you for approaching the podium. Go right ahead.
So the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund is about a $27 million fund, so 5% of that is $1.35 million. Anything above and beyond that is over what your policy says you have to carry. So there's your wiggle room there.
So 1.5.
We did that.
1.35, 1.4 is your 5% mark on a $27 million Water Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. So then, in that case, I would vote yes to take it off the table. And further, I'd like to make a motion, an amendment to this. And it's very simple, and all it is what we did the last time. And it worked, by the way, the last time. When we didn't do this with the first batch of streets, but we did it with the second. So all I would say is, I would make a motion that to accept the $2 million, but that we read into the motion the streets that are going to go with it for the $2 million. Thank you.
So we have, I think Councilor O'Malley seconded that?
Yes.
Okay. So, let's have some discussion on that. We have Councilor Crowe.
I think we keep moving this forward. This is wonderful. And I think that $2 million we've agreed, finance has agreed, it's been in the mayor's proposal, it's been in the finance proposal, it's been on the table. So I think we move forward with that. I absolutely do agree that it's tied to streets so that we know we're all moving forward on the same page. So I'm in total favor.
What's that? So someone wants to read the streets, name which streets we're talking about, in order that we make this motion complete.
Ashland Street, Julia Street, Cushing Road, Kernwood Street, Clement Street, Woodrow Ave, and Crescent Ave.
Thank you. So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I see some of the lights on. Councilor Condon.
I'm sorry, did you name the 7 streets?
That's correct.
Ashland Street, Julia Street, Cushing Road, Kernwood Street, Clement Street, Woodrow Ave, Crescent Ave.
So that's on the all full depth, regardless if they need it or not.
I don't think they have multiple.
Yes, they have.
Oh, they have.
I would offer this amendment, that a DPW director work with CDM to reduce the scope where possible on this bid, without, say, losing the bid. So what I'm asking, that you just don't go out blanket, full depth, all these streets when they don't need it, when you can just reduce the scope of the contract. I'm sure we can reduce a couple streets and save some money. And if that's possible, we should let our DPW person, our city engineer, try to negotiate that. I don't think you should lock them into 7 streets all full depth when all 7 streets clearly do not need it. That's all I'm saying. I don't know why we have to, we're voting $2 million that is going to be spent on a contract. I think it's 1.7 or 8. I don't know what we're concerned about. That's the first streets that are going to get done. So why do we have to lock it into all full depth? If you can mill and overlay a couple without a big major problem, with CDM seems to want to make it into a major problem. Mr. Knox looks like he wants to speak, Mr. President.
Mr. Knox.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something on the 7 streets. If we change the design and reduce the scope to mill and overlay on some of those streets, we'd have to rebid that package. It's a different job. We can't just take the 7 streets because we have a couple of bidders on that bid specifically on full depth was the line item. So we'd have to rebid that package if we change the scope or reduce the scope of work. Whether it's 2, 3, 4 streets, we'd have to rebid it. You can do up to a 25% change order to add something, but if you're going to now take it from a full depth across the board to reduce, you got to rebid the package. It's a totally different product and a different package. Thank you.
Councilor Connor, you all set?
I'm not sure which one I want to speak to here. They're all sitting out there. Maybe Mr. Hogan.
Can you ask a question and let us get the answer?
If we were to go out to bid and they only had to redesign four out of the 7 streets, can anybody give me an estimate why that should take 8 to 10 weeks? Honestly, I think it's just ridiculous.
So, I mean, I think it's a point well made that I don't think we should accept CDM's estimate and let them know that time is of the essence and push them on that time frame. I think what, Director Knox has shared was what CDM told them today, but certainly I think we have every right to go back and to say that we're looking to create a schedule that gets all this work done this year, and what's the shortest possible time that can be turned around in, and then when they give us that time, ask them to take a couple weeks off that. I mean, I think with the amount of work that we've given them, we have a right to go do that, and I think that's what you're saying, and I think we should go back and say we heard you on what the ideal time frame was. Ideal isn't where we're working anymore. What's the shortest period of time it can be taken if we take half the streets and change the scope of them? If we take a third of the streets and we take 2/3, because that's, I don't know if they've thrown that time frame out there assuming they've got to redesign all 16 streets, or if they've assumed half of them get redesigned, but I think it's a fair point that we can go back to them on. I just don't know how much time can be shaved off that window, but we'll go back and have that conversation.
Do you think it's a fair point that we would save in excess of $1 million if we did that?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the difference, a full depth reconstruction number that we're carrying is $400 a linear foot. Mill and overlay is half that, $200 a linear foot. So just mathematically, if you eliminated simply, a portion of the streets, I think it's half the streets become mill and overlay, then you're going to save $1 million.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Council President. So I just wanted to say, just so we can remind people, it's like, we keep calling these the first 7 streets, but these are not the first 7 streets. These are 7 streets in a long line of road work that's been going on. So I don't want us to think that these are just the first 7 streets that we're doing here. These just happens to be the ones that are up to bid and have the most to lose right now. I think it's very important for us to try to move forward, like we've been saying. I agree with everything that has been discussed tonight. I do think there's opportunity to reduce bid by 25%. I think I might have a little bit of different opinion than some other people, but I do think there is opportunity for us to take these 7 streets after they've been funded and reduce it a bit by 25%. I do think we have that leeway. I don't think anyone would be challenging that. I do think there's a chance that we can do some limited change orders in this contract, but it's important that we fund it first. So that's all I wanted to say. It's important to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Matheson.
If you'd like, Councilor O'Malley, we can attempt to get a legal opinion now on whether or not you can vary by 25% without rebidding. But I just wanted to put that out there. You can let the city clerk know if you want to do that. The other point I wanted to make is rewriting the scope of the future work to happen, because we're talking about another $18 million worth of work. And I want everyone at home to be clear on that. There's another $18 million of work being proposed to complete repaving the roads that we opened up for water main replacement. I think that if we want to take a look at the future work that's going to commence and see if we can scale that back to make it feasible and affordable, totally on board with that. But what I did here is that we're looking at, if we were to repackage and redesign and resurvey and rebid, we're looking at not beginning until September and maybe not getting our roads done this year. And that's unacceptable to me. We've already done the groundwork to get 7 roads done. We began that work, before your term, with all due respect, Councilor Condon and Councilor O'Malley, last year by setting out to survey, design, and bid. I think we'd be remiss to not do the work that we've already commenced in getting it done this year. It's $1.6 million worth. That's what's in the estimate that we got from the mayor's office and others. That's what I'm in favor of moving forward on. There is, as you know, as a funding source for the other 18 million, a proposal for the 6.75, which we just discussed, and a proposal to bond against future Chapter 90 money. A little unique, but if it's possible, and we're getting an opinion on that, it would supply another $5 million worth of funding. Hopefully, with those sources and a review of the road work to be commenced in the future, we can come to terms. But to rewrite the work that we've already done, that's not the right way to proceed for this calendar year. This construction season will be over before you know it. We were in these very seats last year, and we debated so long that we didn't get the roads done. And that makes us all look bad. You know, and no one wants to see us point fingers. No one wants to see the mayor and the council and CDM and different people point the finger at each other and say it's his fault. We want to see the roads fixed. So I'd like to get these funding completed for these roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Councilor Crowe.
I'm fine. I agree we need to move forward. I agree with Councilor Condon that we need to figure out if we can scale back. Although I feel like we just need to move forward. And if it's the 7 streets, and if we scale back 25%, and that's not going to affect how we bid these, then we do that with maybe some change orders that we can do it with in some way, but we need to start moving forward. And which is why I think we need to say we take the available $2 million out of the water and sewer, we name these streets, and hopefully it goes into the next few streets. We know it will because it's only 1.6, and if we can cut back a little bit as we're going into things, we can add some streets to that, but I think we need to move on these 7 streets.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I have a solution. Councilor Condon raised a good point. So if we have 1 or 2 streets, and I spoke with Councilor Di Maria and I've spoken previously with the city engineer. If there are 1 or 2 streets on this particular list, we're talking about the 2 million now exclusively. If there are 1 or 2 streets on the, then let's just move those out. There's the bottom list there has, for an example, Granite Street that has a 55 PCI that I know that needs a lot of work. So why don't we just move the 2 lesser streets out that you're thinking of off of that list and move in from the bottom list the 2 that need to be done the most. And it's pretty much an even swap. And solution solved. We can vote on that, the 2 million right now. But even if it's a little more, I mean, we're still, because to me, adding it up, it came up to like 1.8 or something like that. So there's still a little leeway to be able to do it. And if it's 100,000 more or something, I think we can all come back if we need to and do that. Would that be a good amendment and address what you were trying to get at?
Hold on a second, Councilor D'Angelo. Your point of order, Councilor?
Yeah, only that those bids need to go out complete. I don't think that we can swap in and out streets. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Councilor. Are you all set there, Councilor D'Angelo? Okay. Is it Councilor Di Maria or Councilor Condon? Councilor Condon.
I know you're getting sick of hearing me, but I'll make it quick. I agree with you, Councilor, that it would have to go out to rebid and never let us put in 2 streets. I don't know if we are going to give the 2 million and you're looking to push forward on the streets, fine. But we have 9 more streets coming up, right? The design isn't even in yet. We have to tell Mr. Knox and our city engineer that we do not expect those 9 streets to be full depth reconstruction. To go at that, all right, if you want to if your heart's set on completing the construction this spring, so be it. Okay, but nothing should stop us on those 9 streets, which will probably be a little higher contract, all right, that they are not all full depth reconstruction. And we should start now. And that's why I'm hoping that in the coming weeks, that as a council we can come together and find money sources to maybe fund another $2 million to get ready to have the money for those 9 streets, then at least you can accomplish what you want to do. And I hope as a council that we can move that way. And the objective should be this fall to complete those, at least those 9 streets.
Thank you, Councilor Bowden. Councilor O'Malley?
I think that we've definitely had the opportunity to have a discussion on this. I think we've all put our 2 cents in. I think we've really come to, I think, a consensus here. I support Councilor D'Angelo's amendment, and I'd like to move the question.
Before you move the question, we got some amendments in there, but let's let the council president have a word here. I think that we heard earlier this evening Mr. Knox say to us that we could, if we were to rebid all these 7 streets in the front end, the 9 streets in the second part, he's saying that we could get the design work done by CDM by August, we could get most of that work done, that we would not lose the season. When we were out going around the city on Monday with Mr. Knox and Mr. Russell, we saw streets out of that first 7 that were slated for full depth reclamation that didn't seem to need that. And so for us to tie in this $2 million to those 7, just because they've been bid that way, as laymen, it didn't seem like that was the best use of our money. So I would hope that we would hold this over, that we not move on tying in these 7 streets to this $2 million because of that very thing. And it sounds like we've got enough time, and I would hope that that's the direction we would move in. Hold off until another week. We've got the first half of this order, and then we got to hold off for another week. But to tie those 7 streets into this $2 million and nail it down right now, we looked at some of those streets, and they clearly, from a layman's look, didn't appear to need full depth reconstruction. And the subject matter experts were telling us that they really didn't need full depth reconstruction. I think it would be foolhardy for us to tie the $2 billion into these existing 7, and I would hope that that would not prevail. Now, there was a light over here, Councilor Maria, then I'll go to Councilor Matheson and then Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Council President. So just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the motion was to move forward with those 7 streets, but allow for 25% change order where we can do that? Is that what's on the table right now?
Those were 2 separate proposed amendments. Councilor D'Angelo and O'Malley moved to amend to specify that those will be the 7 streets.
Right?
The second amendment was by Councilor Condon, seconded by Councilor Crowe, to further amend to provide that the DPW director would work with CDM to reduce the scope of work on those 7 streets without impacting the validity of the bid.
Councilor Matheson, you are next.
Thank you, Council President. And to Councilor Maria's point, that's what I was going to say. You beat me to the punch. But we never got that opinion. I know I did hear that if there is any meaningful change to the scope of work, you need to rebid it. So that doesn't work. If you could scale back to a certain percentage, I don't know that you can do that. If you could, I would fully support the amendment. With the additional amendment that, it come with the consent of the Ward Council, the review and consent of the Ward Council, because I know that Councilor Condon knows his roads really well. I know the roads in Ward 3 really well, and we can work with them on those changes, but I don't know that we can. And I guess I'm looking out into the audience to see if anyone has an answer to that or if we need to ask legal. Because we're very, very close to having this money appropriated, but not quite there.
Well, let's get,
Well, because we advertised and bid in a fair public process. Companies, private companies came and offered us X amount of work for X amount of money. You can't change it and then expect the process to be fair for the other companies that passed on the bid when it was in the central register. Well,
let's hold on.
depends on
Council Matheson did the
depends on how much you change it, so someone's got an answer. Mr. Hogan, you've got this answer too?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the short answer is, first of all, some of it lies in the way that roads are bid. So it's not like they bid out 7 different streets with the dollar amount per street, that you can sit there and say, I'm gonna change this one from full depth to a mill and overlay. When they bid out roads, it's all quantities of materials across the entire job, making it virtually impossible to change the scope of it without opening up the other bidder to saying, hey, had I known that that was the scope of work, I would have bid this differently. So the reality is, and I think we have consensus amongst everyone that we've, because we've talked about this quite a bit, I don't think you can do it and not run the risk that you're gonna have a problem with the bid protest. You had 2 bidders here, one won, the other one lost, the one that lost isn't happy. Adding scope on is always easier because it's clear what you're adding on. You're adding on a street and it's less than 25% of the contract, and it's very clear, what that scope of work is. But reducing it the way roads are bid, you just can't do it.
Okay, so, in light of that, either, I would pass it as moved, and as represented to us for the last 3 years, with the funding source that is being sought from the mayor, or we table it, and I'm sure our colleagues would love to join the conversation next week. So those are our options. Thank you.
thank you, Councilor Matheson. Councilor Crowe. Councilor Con.
I would move to table.
We have a tabling motion. Do we have a second to that tabling motion?
Just for a point, I support the appropriation too, I just don't support the 7 streets being tied to it. That's all. Because
I don't have a problem with the 7 streets. I have a problem with the 7 streets if they're going to be worked as CDM has originally laid them out to be, full depth. And so therefore, I would say that if we can't reduce the work, then we need to rebid the work, and then we have time to rebid the work. Mr. Knox.
I think Mr. Knox indicated that if we don't have to rebid the entire package. We could bid partial rebid it and still be able to get this done. And in the 9 streets, scale down the scope and send that into the package. A lot of those streets are mill and overlay, which is much easier to design than the full depth reconstruction. When you start doing full depth reconstruction, you're moving curbstone, you're moving everything, trees. I would like them to look at the possibility, as our council president said, of finding out from CDM why it would take 8 to 10 weeks to design probably only 4 of those streets as mill and overlay. And the other 9 we could probably scale it down to maybe 3 streets full depth. Why would it take that long to do that when the design work's done on 5 of the streets?
So we need that as a form of motion.
I just have some information.
Councilor Matheson, give us your...
Yeah, I'll be very brief and I'll keep it, straightly on point. So we did discuss this last year because, we were missing the construction season, which is something I think we're on the brink of doing now. And we learned that it took 3 to 4 weeks to survey it, it took 3 to 4 weeks to design it, and then there was I mean, when you tack on what all the different experts have to do in their respective fields, it just takes a range of weeks that brings you into that 8 to 10-week range. And because projects typically go long, they usually make it the 10-week projection. Any nods back there? Do I have that somewhat right? Yeah, I think that's right. So a city engineer is in that sense. But I'll just add real quick that, you know, this is a $1.6 million roadway project that's ready to go. It's been survey designed and bid and ready to go. I understand that we would love to get to more roads this year, but we might be able to do that. And there's a much larger scope of work and different funding to discuss. I just would hate to see us miss this opportunity, and next week's going to be a whole different conversation. Councilor D'Angelo is nodding in agreement with. So.
Councilor D'Angelo had a...
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm asking a question here to the clerk, Madam Clerk. So my concern is that if we do vote this right now, if this fails, can we not bring it back up in 6 months?
You would need to suspend.
We would need to
It would
then
have to be
suspend rules.
substantially the same.
That's what I believe.
And
So
rules
then, thank you, Madam Clerk, for your deft interpretation. So to me, with that then, that's going to make it even harder. We've got 8 votes conceptually here on this. Let's do that, because once we bring 11, and this is nothing against the other councilors, but it's taken us 2 hours to get to this point. And with 11, it's going to take us 3 hours, and we're going to keep redoing this, and we're going to keep rehashing, and we're going to keep, to me, let's move the question. Let's do the 2 million now. Everybody's making good points. This isn't about that. Let's do these 7 streets. Because I don't want to miss the opportunity. Thank you.
So the tabling motion failed for a second. Is that right? Is there anyone else who has something new to say? No. Turn those lights off. And so on the motion,
Well, on the amendment.
would you restate the amendments, Madam Clerk?
The amendment is to specify that the $2 million will be spent on reconstruction of the 7 streets that have already gone out to bid, those being Ashland Street, Julia Street, Cushing Road, Kermwood Street, Clement Street, Woodrow Ave, and Crescent Ave. And that was a motion by Councilor D'Angelo, seconded by Councilor O'Malley.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Crowe. Condon.
Who did you say, Councilor?
D'Angelo. Di Maria. Matheson.
Yes.
O'Malley. Sika.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yep.
Councilor Condon had the motion to amend, seconded by Councilor Crowe, that it further provided that the DPW director work with CDM Smith to reduce the scope of work on those streets without impacting the validity of the bid.
Yes.
I'll keep that motion in, because even if you reduce 1 street or 2, whether it's possible or not, we should at least try and understand. I think that the sense of this council is on these next 9 streets, we need to move forward with a reduced scope and save some money. Explore a reduced scope on the 9 streets.
I'm confused. You originally said that you wanted to reduce the scope of the 7 streets, if possible.
Correct. I'm
And
moving
now-
that amendment.
And then you would like to add and,
Move forward, exploring a reduced scope on the 9 streets, which will be out to bid.
as one motion.
Yes.
Okay. So Councilor Condon's motion is to amend to further provide that the DPW director will work with CDM Smith to reduce the scope of work on those 7 streets, if possible, without impacting the validity of the existing bid, and to move forward on exploring reducing scope on the following 9 streets, which would be Plymouth Road, Fairview Ave, Nevada Ave, Noble Street, Reserve Street, Field Street, Granite Street, Mill Street, and Stern Street.
Are we ready for the question? This is the amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Crowe.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
D'Angelo. DeMaria. Matheson. O'Malley. Sika. Anderson.
Yes. Now on the main question. On Councilor D'Angelo's motion to adopt the main question. Second by Councilor Di Maria. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Crowe.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
D'Angelo. DeMaria. Matheson. O'Malley. Sika. Anderson.
Yes. That order is adopted.
The docket is clear.
This was supposed to have been an easy night, huh?